Tell me your story.
How did it all start? Do you remember?
Oh, now what happened? How did it start?
This is Small Business Origins.
Yeah, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Small Business Origins. You're tuned into our nationwide search for entrepreneurs that have a story to tell. And as always, I'm your host, John Kelley, aka John the Marketer on Instagram and TikTok, John the Podcaster on Twitter. So make sure you find me over there, interact with me, interact with the show. Let's talk about it. But joining me in the studio today, I've got an entrepreneur that wants to share her story that she's been sharing all over the place. I would say probably all over the world at this point. So virtually in the studio, I've got from Ridgefield, New Jersey, Sabrina Osso with Osso Safe. Sabrina, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, John. We're so happy to be here with you.
Man, we are happy to have you here. And before we hop into it, because, you know, as always, our conversation prior to the show has been amazing already, and I'm excited to hop into it. But before we do, we always start out with our icebreaker question. And today's icebreaker question is, what TV show do you remember most from your childhood?
I have several, but one that stands out is The Brady Bunch.
Yep.
Yeah, I have several, but I can bring that in as we interview because I always wondered, how come my family's not like the Brady Bunch? How come, wow, they solve their problems without any violence, any abuse, and they get along and they respect one another. And I always thought that, like, how come I was, I guess, jealous, you could say, I guess, of that environment, you know, but yeah.
Yeah, you know, something we talked about prior to the show was that, like, how social media kind of gives you the perfect view of everyone's life because that's all that we release. And back then, we didn't have social media. We had, I mean, the internet wasn't even really a thing that just regular common people would get on. This was something that big businesses or the wealthy or other people would access, and it was in its infant stages. And even before that, you know, the 90s, it was really just TV that we would see and kind of see these perfect images of what a family is or anything else. And you're right, it just plays into that whole, well, why is it that my life isn't as perfect as this TV life? And we were learning then, well, TV's fake. This is not real. And now it's like we're going through that again. It's so cyclical how everything in history repeats itself, because now we're learning with social media. It's like, well, why isn't my life as perfect as the Joneses down the road? And it's like, well, the Joneses down the road have all kinds of problems they're not telling you about. So don't take social media literal. And that's just interesting. For me, it was PBS was really big. I was born in 88, and PBS was like the go-to thing in the morning while I'm having my cereal or something at my grandmother's house, you know, while my parents are at work. And so it was things like Reading Rainbow, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Those shows really just, they were all about my childhood, man. That was everything that I did, just watching these things about books that we got to read and, you know, learning how to be. I feel like it was really good, wholesome TV, and it just kind of probably made me into the person I am today, watching stuff like that versus what kids are seeing today on YouTube and everything else.
Right. I do remember Mr. Rogers. I forgot about him. He was good. Yes. And a few others that you mentioned. It's true. Yeah. And that was the social media of the day, like you said. So I'm glad you said that. Yeah, it's true.
Absolutely. Well, we are here to talk about you, though. And I know all of this stuff kind of plays into it already. We've kind of delved into some of it. But let's start with who Sabrina is. Where did you come from? How'd you get into entrepreneurship? I always ask, what is your origins?
Sure. Again, thank you so much for having us. Any opportunity that we have to do interviews like this, we're very, very grateful. I was born in Manhattan, actually, I'm proud to say. And, but I've been in New Jersey since I was about two and a half. And my parents were born and raised in Italy. So my first language is Italian. Actually, I was told that in kindergarten, no one understood me because I spoke Italian dialect. And I'm actually grateful because I'm very fluent. I travel back and forth between here and Italy for various reasons. And no one in my family there speaks English other than a few curse words. So I have to speak Italian, and it's a beautiful country. I highly recommend at least one visit. And, but I say this because I never enjoyed Italy until I was an adult, because all I remember is my parents fighting. I come from violence. My father beat my mother on a regular basis. My mother would beat me. So, and I've had enough therapy to be comfortable to say that to a perfect stranger. We're both strangers. But, I feel like I look back, I'm like, wow, between the beach and the architecture and just the people and the food and the atmosphere, I said, wow, I never enjoyed it. I never enjoyed it because all I would hear is my parents fighting, the suitcases being thrown everywhere, the put downs, the verbal, physical abuse. And I remember my cousin saying, go get yourself a pair of shoes. And I said to myself, okay, I'll go get a pair of shoes. Like, Italy is known for many things, and one of them is fashion. So he said, go into town and get yourself a pair of shoes. And that's when I started like really appreciating Italy for what it was, not the violence, the abuse, the chaos, the dysfunction, because that's not Italy. Italy is the opposite of that, unless you have a family that is that, so because violence steals your life. It steals your life. Abuse steals your life. My business, Osso Safe, started as a one-woman show. I'm a dancer. And I wrote a one-woman show called Home Sweet Home, ? And I play different women being abused. She goes to her good place. That's where the dancing comes in. But then she's pulled back into the terror of violence. I did a lot of research for the show, and I could not believe the statistics that I was finding. And we could go over some of the statistics later in the interview. But I said to myself, wow, I need to make this into a business, a bona fide business with products and services, because I knew the impact that it had on my life. But as I was reading and doing the research, I said, wow, this affects many, many people. So, and I thought back, what did I need growing up? What would have helped? What would have really made a positive impact? So I created products and services that I feel will make, or are making, and continue to make a positive impact on people's lives, whether you're a victim of violence or not, So, so that's how Osso Safe was born. And we combine education and technology to make respect a required standard condition of residency in your home, in all homes. So I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, no, it's a great answer. And I know we cheated and we kind of shared some personal stories prior to the show, but I do appreciate the fact that you're willing to talk about these things openly, because I see and respect that it is a very personal thing. And unfortunately in society, something that you really campaign against is making it a taboo subject. But it's easy for this to be considered a taboo subject because violence in the home especially is so negative, and society views it as that icky thing that we don't want to see, we don't want to talk about. And I think it's well intentioned. I don't think people don't want to talk about it because they don't care about the victim and they just want these people to be victims. I think that they don't want to talk about it because a lot of people who aren't like me, who works in public service and sees the ugly side of society sometimes, a lot of people can't handle the ugly side of society. I think if a majority of Americans or a majority of the world understood, I say Americans first because I think that some of the other world is really kind of privy to what's going on. There's a lot of countries out there that unfortunately are still just war torn and just kind of dealing with a lot of conflict internally, versus places like, I would say, Italy, France, America, England, where we're more kind of progressed already past that part of our lifestyle. We are in this place where, from one lens, life is so perfect. And then from the lens of people who have been victimized by these things, we know the ugly, we know the ugly side of society. And we know that not just society as a whole, but even right down to our own family, that this stuff exists. And so it is difficult for people like myself, people like you, to come to a show and share these personal details, because I think it's easy for a victim like we were to bring that in close and say, well, I don't want to talk about this ugly side of my life because I don't want people to know about it. I don't want people to think that I'm weak. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I don't want to, interrupt this person's day or make them like feel anything or see anything that they don't want to see. And it's like we take all of that stuff on ourselves. And I was never a victim of abuse myself, but I call myself a victim because I had to live in a household and see it. And so it traumatized me mentally in a way, even though I never wanted to admit that. It was still something I had to deal with mentally as a child, because I was torn like you. I had a beautiful life. I had a beautiful family. I loved what we got to do, the traveling that we got to do, the vacations we got to take. The only problem was a vacation would go from fun bliss to hell really fast. And you never knew when it was going to come. You never knew what was going to be the thing that sparked it. So you were kind of on eggshells. As a child, often, I don't know if you felt this, but I would blame myself for my parents' arguments, because it would be something as simple as, I would want toast, for instance. And my dad, this is something you talked about in your TEDx, your TED talk, was, my dad would kind of be like that. Well, he's 5-6 years old. He knows how to use a toaster. Don't, and excuse my language, and I'm going to put a trigger warning on this episode for people, but he would say, don't make my son a pussy. Like he can make his own damn toast. Why are you in there making toast for him? Well, then all of a sudden I take that on myself. Like, oh, well, crap. If I would have just made toast, then my mom wouldn't be in this situation. Right. Whereas when I got older, I realized, no, if my dad wasn't being an asshole, then this would have been fine.
Right.
And it wasn't always my dad's fault. We're all human, right? Sometimes my mom would be the aggressor. Sometimes my dad would be the aggressor. I don't think that it was that they hated each other. I definitely don't think they wanted me to be exposed to that. I think it was just that they didn't have resources, something like what you have, that was able to teach them how to argue correctly. Because my dad grew up in an abusive household. He watched his mom get the crap beat out of her. He was forced into Christianity and was kind of told, like, maybe you're not a good Christian, that kind of stuff. He was sexually abused as a child. And then you take my mom, she was sexually abused as a child from 2 to 10 years old. So you have two people who are traumatized. They get together, they find this solace in each other, and then they don't know how to work out their own problems because they came from homes where they were taught to deal with their problems the wrong way. So I say all of that to say that I don't think it was truly a situation where they wanted to be bad people. And I don't think that we lived in this, some of the cases that you've seen, it's clear that the male is the aggressor. The male is the problem. They're abusive. They're condescending. They are manipulative, that kind of stuff. And then on the opposite side of that, we see that where the woman is that aggressor as well. I don't think either one of them wanted to be an aggressor or go through something like this. I think they just didn't know how to do it any other way. So that turned me into a traumatized child who, the same way my sister would have to come to me and say, hey, let's go play Donkey Kong on the Nintendo in your room, and we turn the volume all the way up and shut the doors while things are flying, lamps are flying, and personal belongings are being broken, and screaming, cussing, yelling, and all this stuff. And then that's something that as I grew older, I had to learn, because my wife and I, we've been through some knockdown, drag out fights, nothing physical, because I made a promise to myself. And believe it or not, my dad literally told me, if I ever see you hit a woman, then I'm coming for you. And it was like, that's kind of what told me. I knew he didn't want to be this way. He just didn't take the steps necessary to make himself a better person and get out of that. But like you, I have gone through some severe trauma as well, where just things were ruined for no reason. We were having a beautiful time, and then it turns into this huge fight. And it's something I've had to crawl out of and learn myself of just, hey, it's not right. Like, she's going through this problem. She's going through, whatever the situation may be, or I'm upset about something. I got to remove myself from that and learn to kind of deal with this. So Osso Safe, I know that you mentioned you've got some technology involved there. You've got some things that kind of, it seems like this would help someone who, like my parents, would need something that can tell them or teach them how to be better partners in a relationship. Is that correct? Like, what is it Osso Safe does?
Yes. Thank you for saying all of that. And I think a lot of survivors can relate to that. I always blamed myself. In fact, I would say I am responsible for my parents' marriage, like making it okay. And like you said, it is an attribute of abusive parents or abusive people where they make a problem out of nothing. Like you said, the toast. I remember in my house, it was getting sick. Like if I got sick, it was like a war. It's your fault. Why didn't you put the jacket on her? She went outside without the jacket. And it would turn into a war. And it's an attribute of abusive people. Instead of just let it be okay. It's not a problem. So I echo pretty much everything that you said, John. I sympathize. And I find it, though, a bit shocking that your dad, can I ask, is he still living?
He is not. Unfortunately, Both of my parents have passed. So I lost my dad when I was 16, and I lost my mom when I was 24. They were both early 50s.
Okay.
So my dad was 52. My mother was 51.
Okay. I'm surprised that he said that to you, that if you ever lay a hand on your wife, on your partner, I'm coming to get you, because my father never said that. It was always, he wasn't wrong. I was the one who was wrong. You made me do this to you. Both of my parents did that. So, wow, I find that interesting. I have to say, my father passed away as well. It's been 5.5 years now that he passed away. Osso Safe, we combine education and technology to promote safety and prevent violence. So back to what I said, what did I need growing up? What did your parents need growing up and also in their adult life? What would have made it better? What would have made it more where we existed, where we coexisted in peace at any level, instead of verbal, physical, sexual abuse. So what we are promoting into the real estate industry, and we focus on the real estate industry because everything stems from the home. If you're not safe at home, you're not safe anywhere. Well, let me rephrase that. We have to make home safe, so that way everything else will fall into place, if you will. If you trace back all of the shooters in schools, where you trace back their home life, they come from violence. They come from abuse, from chaos, from dysfunction. Someone that comes from a nurturing, loving, respectful environment, they would never take a gun and shoot up a bunch of teachers, students, little kids, staff. It would never even cross one's mind. So everything stems from the home. And we are introducing into the real estate industry Osso Safe certifications for properties. And these certifications are combining education and technology. They're made up of 4 components. And it's the certifications are, we are marketing this to landlords, property owners, property managers, whether you rent, whether you own, whether you have a mortgage or not. We want this to cross over all types of residency. And it's the landlord, the property owner would purchase the Osso Safe Home Sweet Home Package. It consists of 4 components: a policy, a seminar, an app, and therapists assigned to the property. So just to give a brief description of these 4 components, the policy basically states, I, as a homeowner, I'm going to promise to provide you a safe space for you to live. You, in turn, as my resident, as my tenant, you promise to not act in any way, shape, or form abusively. Otherwise, you, the abuser only, gets immediately evicted from the premises. And we go into full knowledge knowing that that would be the consequences. So it's not like a surprise. Oh, I didn't know that this was going to happen. You know, because it's on paper. It's documented. And also in the policy, it states, children have agency over their lives way before 18 years of age. We don't wait until a child is 18 years old to get them to safety. So if both parents are abusive, we educate the child to say, look, if you're not safe with mom and dad, who do you feel safe with? An aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, a close family friend. Because if we wait until they're 18, it's too late. It's too late. So this is all mapped out in the policy. The second component is the seminar, the Osso Safe Home Sweet Home Seminar. And we educate everyone in this seminar, adults and children alike, on facts, statistics, warning signs, definitions of abuse, the difference between abuse and discipline, what constitutes a good relationship. So that way residents know, oh, I didn't know that if I pull my partner's hair, that constitutes abuse. Now you know. The third component is the app. I hired a software company to go along with my specifications where the app detects violent-like movements. Now, right now it's being improved, it's being modified, but it will send alerts to the landlord, to the property owner to say, oh, wow, shit, I have 10 units. Well, you just beat the crap out of her in my unit 2, and in my unit 10, you just beat the crap out of him. This is grounds for eviction. So it eliminates the he said, she said factor. It doesn't pick up documents. It doesn't pick up conversations. What it picks up is violence. So hitting, slapping, spitting, kicking, punching, raping, violence, any form of violence. The fourth and final component are therapists. We have therapists assigned to the property. So in an Osso Safe certified property, you are required to check in with your therapist once a month. Is everything okay? Do you feel like anything is looming? Just to give an example, well, Mr. and Miss Therapist, our kid got into a fight. We sense that there's bullying. We're not going to beat the child. We're not going to verbally disparage our child. We know that we are held to a higher regard, a higher standard in an Osso Safe certified property, but help us through this because we don't know how to handle this. So all of these 4 components working together makes for an Osso Safe certified property. Our logo gets placed outside of the property, so that way any pedestrian or vehicle traffic that's going by, they see the logo and they know what that means. Like, oh, I know that that property is Osso Safe certified, which means that they have systems and mechanisms in place in case violence happens. They don't just leave it to the wind, toss it up to chance. And quite frankly, I would rather raise my children, if you have children, I would rather raise them in an Osso Safe certified property because it's safe. They make respect, safety, a number 1 priority. So we are introducing this into the real estate industry to say, look, the statistics are alarming. And as you said, John, there's so many people going through this. Well, enough is enough. Enough is enough. Let's nip it in the bud. Let's solve it in residency where all of these violence, abuse episodes happen. So we are marketing this to the real estate industry, to all. I mean, to schools, to universities, to workplaces, but our focus is in residency. So I hope I answered the question to give a synopsis of our core product.
Absolutely. So this is the app that is going to detect these things. Obviously, for people like myself, if I wanted to invite a program like this into my home, this is totally optional, voluntary. This isn't forced. It isn't Big Brother in a sense of, I'm being spied on. This is something I have to consent to and take part in. Right. So the idea here would be apartment complexes, duplexes, rental homes, all of those with landlords and tenants that are deciding to take part in that. I would know if I wanted to rent from this property ahead of time that it is an Osso Safe certified place and that I would have to participate in this program in order to qualify to live there. Is that correct?
Correct. Basically, we also, though, we are saying to tenants that are already occupied, that are already in the building, we will offer them when their lease is up, you would have to become Osso Safe certified in order to continue to live here. But if your lease is not up, then we will do what's called an exchange of consideration, which means we will reduce your rent X amount of dollars if you become Osso Safe certified for the remainder of your lease. Because we know that, let's say we're in the month of May, but you have a lease until December. Well, you have a choice. You could either become Osso Safe certified and get your rent reduced up until December, or you could stay the way you are and not participate. So we leave that up to the landlord, the property manager, and the tenant. So yes, it's not forced, but we are very transparent in this is how we run this property. This is how it's going to be run. And it's your choice. You don't have to live here. You could go elsewhere. No problem. But know that we're looking to make this a standard because, quite frankly, no one should live with violence, with abuse, with chaos, with dysfunction, especially a child. A child should not be exposed to that, not be attacked verbally, physically, sexually, in any capacity. It's very traumatizing, as you stated and as I stated. So this makes for a better residency for all across the board.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement there. I'm always honest on my shows, and I ask sometimes tough questions, sometimes easy questions because I'm curious and I want to know things. And so on one hand with this, I'm super excited about it. I think this is a great idea because especially what is the one question after every shooting that occurs, whether it's at school, at work, any mass shooting that we have in the US, the one thing that comes out afterward is everyone is saying we have to do something.
Right.
And you have one side of the political aisle that, the very far side says ban all guns. That same side that's a little less radical says let's have a lot more gun laws in place and let's, make these huge changes, which I'm sorry, but making, like beating the crap out of your wife is illegal. Does making that illegal stop people from doing it? No. So it's like there's some good ideas there and then there's some bad ideas that just aren't going to work. The very other side of it, in some instances kind of says, hey, leave it alone. In other instances says it's a mental health issue. But all of us right here in the middle are all saying that we agree exactly what you said. There's a mental health issue stemming from probably a major physical abuse situation that's occurring in, I don't know what the statistics are, but a majority of those cases, that mental insecurity was led to by the physical abuse. And so this seems to be kind of an answer that I think both sides maybe could agree on to say, hey, you know what? If you want us to do something, then let's start addressing the mental health component, which could stem from a physical abuse component. And so I love that this is an answer for that, because to me, it seems like something that we can actually take action on that could have a difference or make a difference versus if you just add gun laws, some people aren't going to abide by those gun laws anyway. If you just leave it alone and do nothing, then nothing is going to change and we're going to continue down this path. So I think that both sides kind of have some good concerns, some good ideas, some bad ideas, all that stuff. And I think this is a little bit in the middle. So the part that concerns me is both of those political sides of the aisle, one is going to probably say, yes, make it mandatory, force it down people's throats. Everyone takes part in this, or, you don't even need to live in America anymore, versus the other side is going to say, well, this is very big brother. It's spying on us. We want our freedom. I don't like this idea. And then again, us in the middle, people like myself are going to say, hey, you know what? I like some components of it, and I have some questions and or concerns on some other parts of it as well. So one of my concerns would be, well, first of all, let me back up and ask, is this active in other, is this testing, or is this already being used by some agencies, realtors, landlords, that kind of thing?
This is fairly new. I have been improving upon it. I have been making changes to it for a couple of years, but we are ready to go. We are ready to go, especially that I'm a real estate agent. I have access to the multiple listing service, to property owners, property managers, landlords, tenants, buyers and sellers. So we have been talking to so many people, and also as a member, or as a real estate agent, you become a member of these national associations, right, for real estate agents. So we have been talking to other professionals about it, just to let them know, look, we exist, we're here, these are the services, and we're ready to go. We are ready to introduce, we have been introducing them. We are ready to implement and execute. And this is also national. We definitely have global goals, but we are starting local, obviously, and definitely because everybody lives somewhere, right? I mean, even if you're homeless and you live in your car or in someone's residence, this applies, because you need to be safe. You should be without any fear of anyone beating the crap out of you, or verbal, physical, sexual abuse in any capacity. So, and also we are, I believe me, I understand. I always consult with a small team of lawyers on everything that we're doing. So I've designed it where there is very little, resistance, or as little as possible, because I had to, dot the I's and check the T's, because we want the most people on board. The more people we could get on board, the more this will propagate, and the safer people will be, especially children. So, so I hope I answer the question. I know I go off on a tangent at times, but
no, I love it. I'm just trying to figure out, is this something that has been beta tested so far? Is it something, is this app live? Have you seen some problems that you've solved with it, or are you just still kind of in that testing mode where you're anticipating problems and trying to create those?
I would say in the middle, testing and also implementing. So right now it's being improved upon, on detection, and we use facial recognition and AI, artificial intelligence. So the software company that I hired, like I said, they go according to my specifications, and even they said, wow, we've never done something like this before, where it's detecting violent movements. So, and this it will have multiple applications, even as a real estate agent, not only in the homes, but as a real estate agent, you go on showings, open houses. You don't know on the other side if they have good intentions or bad intentions. There are many stories, unfortunately, how agents are, either they are kidnapped or attacked or even murdered. One comes to mind, Beverly Carter. She showed a vacant house, a vacant investment property to someone, and he kidnapped her and killed her ultimately. This happened a few years ago. I think it was in the state of Arkansas. our app would have detected the violence and police would have gone to the residence right away. So another application would be for if you have nannies watching your young children or pet sitters for your pets. This would be very applicable, the app, the Osso Safe app. So it is on Google as well as on the Apple Store. And you would have to use the cameras that are designed with the app. So it's not like you could use, it won't work. It won't be as compatible as using the cameras designed with the app. So, but we are ready to go. I mean, between the policy, the seminar, the app, and the therapist, we're ready to go. I mean, this is ready to be implemented.
So this is going to use basically some type of home security camera connected to your phone app. And then that's where, is it where the phone is going to feel this movement and then kind of AI is going to review this camera to see if some type of action is going on?
Yeah, like I said, artificial intelligence and facial recognition. I mean, you could be roughhousing, as the phrase goes, right? Kidding around and you're punching, you're throwing each other to the ground and everything. But it'll match your facial expression. Like if there's fear, if there's panic, if there's anxiety, that's where the match will happen where, whoa, this is violence. You know, she or he is not in a good spot right now. You know, and when you're roughhousing, there's a level of, you're not being in fear or panic or anxiety or attacked, if you will. So there is that component to differentiate.
Gotcha. Yeah, because that's where my question was going, was it concerns me with false alarms, right? Because working in the first responder world, I know that obviously false alarms can be costly because you're taking up resources that are limited already. And so that was kind of my concern, was how is it going to know this difference between that? Because sometimes my kids roughhouse, together, and they cause some major disruption to the world. And it's like the last thing I would want as a parent is a cop showing up to my door. And then now I've got this kind of big brother feeling of government trying to have this reason to step into my home and investigate what's going on because my kids were screaming and yelling and roughhousing. So that was a big concern that I have there. I mean, I'm not going to lie, it does still, I need to look into this more and kind of be sold on it a little more, because it's a little weird for me. Like, we don't really have security cameras in our house. The closest we have inside is a Furbo, which is to, because we're nerds and we like to give our dogs treats while we're gone, and be able to check up on him. We have that in the living room only. And so my other question would be kind of too is, if someone is like me and they don't want those security cameras all throughout their house, is there an option where it can function without the security cameras? And then additionally, do you think there'd be any type of issue where maybe, for instance, let's say I wouldn't want to have a camera in my bedroom, right? And so would my bedroom, do you think that would all of a sudden now possibly become a place of abuse because someone knows, okay, well, the cameras can't see anything that's going on in there. So does your app do anything to kind of combat that to where it can still detect what's going on?
It is by choice. I mean, you get to decide where the cameras go. It could be only the common area of the of your apartment or your dwelling, your place of residence. It could be in the hallway. It could be the rec room, if you will. So it is by choice. We're not shoving anything down anyone's throats. But the idea is that, and I'm sure you know this as well because you've experienced violence, abusers can only keep their poker face for so long. I mean, they could appear goody-goody for a month, a couple of weeks, even a couple of months, a couple of days, but sure enough, their abusive colors will reveal themselves, if you will. So there are options with the whole, the package, definitely, as far as what cameras or where the cameras will be installed. And then what's great about my app that I'm proud of is that you don't have to press a button to detect it, because then it's too late. The app detects the violence for you. So it's not like, wow, I wish I had a camera to capture that. It'll pick it up, and it won't pick up, like I said, conversations or documents, but the violence. And this is the areas that I'm getting improvement upon, where the false alarms are decreased, where it's more precise on the type of, or I should say violence, abuse, where it won't detect rough housing or different types of rough housing. And I know, like, for example, sex, right? There's people that they prefer, again, it's got to match that level of fear, of worry, of anxiety, of panic. So it's AI and facial recognition that's always being improved upon. So I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, no, just things that I'm kind of thinking about off the top of my head here, because I'm very interested in this. I do see this as this is a movement that could make a huge difference in the world of abuse, in the world of violence, both inside and outside of the home, So I absolutely see the value here. Definitely something I want to learn more about, because I do have some questions that could be concerns, so I would never come out and say like, nope, this is a terrible idea. I hate it. I don't want the invasion of privacy. I would say that cautiously, with concern, I am interested in this, and I kind of want to investigate it more as that possible answer. So I guess my next question would be, how do we find out that information? But more specifically, who needs to be searching into your product and finding out this information? Is it truly just anyone and everyone in the world? Or is this just something where you really kind of probably want these investors and people who are purchasing homes and renting them out and that kind of stuff?
You mean who would be a potential customer? Okay.
Yeah, like who's your ideal client type thing?
I would say landlords, property owners, property managers. We want this to propagate over all types of residency, as I mentioned, whether you rent, whether you own, whether you have a mortgage or not. So you could be only the owner or the mortgage holder of your single family home, for example. But let's say you're with a partner that is abusive. Then what? Well, this would be, we are looking to make this a standard. So our goal is to have this propagate over all residency, all types of residency, and to make this a standard where, yeah, there should be no violence, no abuse, no chaos, no dysfunction. So that is the goal. And so it kind of it acts as a deterrent for anyone. If your partner is thinking, well, I'll go elsewhere. We're just going to move elsewhere. No, hopefully that property will be Osso Safe certified. Okay, move from there. No, that property will be Osso Safe certified. It has to become a standard, because otherwise the abuser has too much. They have freedom. Freedom is a two-way street. That's the wrong word. They will be allowed to do whatever they want to you, and they need not to be. So, and this is where the education complements the technology, and the technology complements the education. So it's not just the technology that we are promoting, that we are marketing. It's also the education. So we educate abusers or would-be abusers, and we don't call them abusers. We're not going to say, okay, we're going to have class now. All of you abusers stand up, and all of you victims No, obviously not. We do a blanket education for everyone, whether you're safe at home or not safe at home, because quite frankly, all of this, the education, knowing the facts, the statistics, the warning signs, and we make it interactive where by the end of the education, the last component of the seminar, we put it to practice. We give scenarios and we say, okay, based on what you learned, how are you going to handle this? Are you going to beat your kid? Are you going to beat your partner? Are you going to, and we realize people lie, right? They're going to lie. They're going to say, well, yeah, I'm great. This is great. I sign. But like I said, your abusive colors, if that's what you are, they're going to show. So we do the setup before, we do the interactive where it's a practice, and we continue that practice. So it's not like we're saying, okay, install the cameras. Okay, we're going to watch you. And when an episode occurs, well, you're out. And no, there's education with that too. There has to be both, because otherwise it defeats the purpose. And abusers need to be educated. If you don't abuse, you need to be educated. If you're respectful in your household, this is just going to reinforce everything that you already know. And it may also, it's going to make it even better. It's going to even give you more tools and more resources to handle a bully. If your kid has to deal with a bully at school, or your kid is dating someone and there are red flags, like, wait a minute, what did he do to you? And what does she say to you? And so these are all, they go hand in hand, John, you know, the education and the technology. They have to, it has to be together. So this makes for better residency for everyone, you know. Yeah. And I know I'm generalizing, like, you know, they say in business, you have to narrow in on your market. You're being too general. I get it. But I guess the short-term answer right now is landlords and tenants and property managers. But the long-term, and I would say as soon as possible, it's all residency, really. There's no excuse for abuse. There just isn't, you know, and we're not saying, we at Osso Safe, we're not saying everything is going to be perfect. You're never going to get into a fight with your spouse ever again after our seminar. You're not going to, have any conflict. Of course, there's going to be conflict. You're going to disagree with your partner. You're going to have problems with your children as they get older. We're not saying, oh, it's going to be all rosy and perfect. But there's a way to disagree. There's a way to be in conflict. And that boundary is that you never cross the line of abuse, not verbal, not physical, not sexual. So there's a way to fight. There's a way to disagree. So just that alone, that component, we think is very valuable in any household, especially if you come from violence. And you mentioned this in your own household. You're not given tools, you know, you're not given resources. It's not explained to you. Don't ever hit, don't ever punch, don't ever, verbal, you never call anyone in your family a bitch, a slut, a whore, a tramp, a sleaze, a floozy, a bimbo, a thought, a skank. All of that is verbal abuse. So we feel that before the keys are given to you for your rental or a property, you need to become Osso Safe certified. So that way any episodes are prevented, you know, they're just prevented. I hope I make sense, you know.
Yeah. No, you absolutely do. So my next question would be, what is your plan for funding? You know, where is this going to come from? Is this going to cost the person who's partaking in it? You know, is the app going to be a paid app type thing? Kind of what is your plan on that as far as how the company will be making money to continue these improvements and to put on these seminars and push this technological advance?
Our price point for each unit, no matter how many people are in the unit, you could live alone or you could live with your whole family with 3, 4, 5 children. It's $125 per unit, and that covers the entire package. So, and it's just a one-time fee for the landlord. You pay for the $125 per unit. Now, there are levels to the certifications. There's first level, second level, third level. That's the first level, getting everybody educated, getting the cameras installed, signing the policy. The sign goes outside of the property, and then there are therapists assigned to the property. So let's say that there's violence that happens. So then we move to the second level, and that's where an arrangement is worked out between the therapist and the tenant or the resident, where they need more therapy. It is more involved, more, I don't want to say aggressive, but more involved, because obviously something happened. You hit her, he hit you, something happened, or there was an altercation. So that the abuser is removed from the premises, and then we go with extra therapy for the rest of the family unit, provided that they could still pay the rent or the mortgage. The third level of Osso Safe certification is if both parents are abusive, and that's when we step in with our own security and we get the child to safety, whoever the child names, aunt, uncle, grandparent, close family friend. So, but as a base cost, it's $125 per unit. And I have tested this. I've asked many people, even in the real estate industry as well as other industries. And like I said, I consulted with our small team of lawyers. That's very reasonable. That is doable. It's not, it's very user friendly, if you will. You know, you're not going to break the bank. And like I said, it's a one-time deal for the landlord. Like the landlord did his or her part. They got their property Osso Safe certified. The first level it's established. Okay. And then we take it from there. Yeah. And we've had,
Is that an annual fee, or you're saying lifetime for the unit? It would be,
lifetime for the unit. And then every year we strongly recommend to get it, to do like a review, you know, like once a year. You know, as real estate agents, we have to go through our continued education credits and everything every 2 years. Well, this would be something comparable, because, you know, you get new people in your family. Maybe you have one child. Now you have 2 children. You broke up with somebody. So now there's different, living arrangements. So we recommend once a year to get the education done, get everybody, if you will, Osso Safe certified, or just like a renewal. It would be like a renewal. But yeah, for the landlord, it would just be a one-time, $125 per unit, and that's it.
Even if he has another family move in, you know, let's say this family lasted 2 years, and then 2 years from now, a new family moves in. His unit is still covered?
With a new family, it's a new education, right? It's a new lease, if you will.
Got it.
So So excuse me, it's not for the life of the unit, the life of the people in the unit.
Perfect. Got it.
No, these are
just
great
trying
questions.
To understand. Absolutely.
And the more, sure. Mm-hmm.
I've got. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I have like probably 2 more hours worth of questions I could ask you. I mean, this is so, it's so different, right? So it's something that is definitely worth investigating. So to the listener who's out there right now, because unfortunately we just don't have time, like it could probably take the rest of the day to get every detail that you need to get out to the public. So for that listener that wants to connect and kind of do some of this digging and investigating, how do we get in touch with your product, with you?
Yes, our
and find out
website
more?
is OhSoSafe.com. And on the website, it explains more in detail the Osso Safe Home Sweet Home package, the certifications, what's involved. It breaks it into components. So that way it's a better understanding. We are on all the major social media platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. And I just started about a year now, a TikTok and a YouTube dedicated to kids, whether they're safe at home or not safe at home, the Osso Safe Kids channel, if you will. And we talk about abuse and safety and respect. And if you are of dating age, what are the warning signs to look out for? And also we have, behind me, my children's book. I just published a children's book. It's called Home Safe Home for You and Me. And this book will be a staple in certifications because it lays the groundwork, especially for kids. Are you safe at home? The difference between abuse and non-abuse, the difference between respect and disrespect, and to give them voice, that they have choice over their residency. So these are the best ways to reach us, really.
So every person that's on my show would not disagree that if somebody would come to you and start giving you money, that would be a huge resource for you and help you out, right? Everybody needs money to survive and live and grow. But what is it that our listeners could do that would support your mission and what you have going on? What is your biggest need right now that's going to help you really dial this thing in and get it out?
Anyone with children or with children that they care about that are not safe at home, tell those children, whether they're at school, whether they are at camp, do not go home. Don't go home. Stay at school. Say their cheer. I want to live where I am Osso Safe, and I am Osso Safe with whoever that is, an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, a close family friend. And if they have no one, just say the cheer. I want to live where I am Osso Safe, and I am Osso Safe with. That the kids need to band together, that schools need to be instrumental in creating a safe environment for their students, especially the ones that are not safe at home, to help them to get to safety. Don't let them go home. Schools know the kids that are troubled at home just by the sheer court orders and restraining orders and how they behave at school, right? Teachers are with their students all day long. Don't let them go home. I know it's avant-garde. I know it's pretty out of the box, but do not bother calling Child Protective Services. I speak from personal and professional experience. They need to rename themselves APA, Abusive Parent Protection Agency, because that's who they protect. Give voice to their students, to those kids that are not safe at home. They know who makes them feel safe. Get them there. That's what I would say.
Awesome. Sabrina, I mean, I hate to have to even end this thing because it's been such a great conversation, and it's an interesting topic. You know, I'll be 100% honest. There's definitely more information I need before I'm ready to pay the fee and download the app, but it's something that I'm interested in as a possible solution for this stuff. And I just wish you the best of luck kind of dialing it in and getting this thing out there to everybody.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much for your positive feedback, all your questions. This will help your listeners, and it will help us as well to improve and gain more momentum. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Listeners, thank you as well for tuning in to another episode of Small Business Origins and hearing that story, the things that we shared, the things that we talked about. It's such an important topic, and I would absolutely encourage you to just check out the website, check out what she has going on, see if this is something that you think could be a good fit. And of course, you know, send in those recommendations and questions and all of those things that you have. Do some research and find out if this is something that could work for you, because I definitely think this is something we need to look into a little bit more. But that's it for us, man. We're going to have all of this stuff down in the show notes for you, some links and resources to places that you can get help if you are in an abusive situation. Of course, we're going to have links to today's guest and all of the stuff Osso Safe has going on. So make sure you check those things out. And like I said, just do your due diligence and find out if this is something that could be good for you or someone that you know. Other than that, we'll see you on the next episode of Small Business Origins, as we have every single week. And I can't thank you again enough for being here. And as always, stay beefy, my friends.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Small Business Origins.
I love an origin story.
If you like what you just heard, leave us a review, subscribe, and share with a friend.
You guys, check this out.
They're going to love it. You're going to love it.